and you will receive a copy of this recording after the session concludes. Welcome everyone to the webinar hosted by Bluum on the Securing Our Future Grants. We're so excited we're here, and we can't wait to spend this portion of the morning or afternoon with you. First, we'd like to touch on our mission here at Bluum. Our mission is to improve learning and make it more accessible, and we're so excited to support you and support your districts, your teachers, your students in that endeavor. Just some housekeeping things. If you do have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll have a couple of different opportunities for questions during the webinar and after the conclusion of the webinar. You will receive a recording of the webinar and the presentation along with some follow-up materials after the conclusion of this webinar. So just a note there, the agenda that we're going to follow as shown on the screen, just some welcome and housekeeping tips, a summary of the funding, an overview of the application outline, allowable costs, and then we'll cover some Bluum Grants and Advisory Services. I'd like to introduce our Bluum teammates. My name is Sarah Babay. I'm the Education Service Coordinator here at Bluum. Our presenter, Eureka Meziab, is our Grants and Funding Specialist, and our account executives and sales directors in this region are Adil, Suzanne, and Aaron. Now I will pass it over to you, Eureka. Take it away.
Sure. Thanks, Sarah, for the introduction. And what an exciting opportunity for the state to invest in such a broad and impactful grant as the Securing Our Futures program. This funding source is aimed to disperse funds to help schools improve their overall safety and security profile and positioning. All schools and districts will use vulnerabilities identified in their latest Idaho Office of School Safety and Security Vulnerability Assessment Report to determine their project needs. There's one deadline to keep track of, and it's January 15th, 2024, 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Now we'll get into what this grant comprises of and our funding amounts. So I'm sure everyone has familiarized themselves with the notice of funding opportunity documents provided by Idaho, but I know the funding amounts may seem a little bit confusing. So just to run it through, each district will submit one application with one major project allowed per school. And then the maximum award per project is $200,000. Individual projects that exceed the cap may be considered for funding through the review committee, and approximately $6.3 million is available through this round of the SOF program. Next slide, please. The application component consists of a registration information of your district, organizational structure and size, and the grant request narrative elements, which does include the budget. We're pending to receive the live submission forms and documentation requirements and assurances through the state of Idaho. They have not released those two links or guidelines yet. So we're all updates will be available on the site as we go through this application cycle. All right. I know narrative elements are the most challenging aspects of the grant, so I wanted to run through them with you just so you can get prepared to answer some of these questions. And I've put the word count as well, so you can right size your responses. So statement of need is the first narrative element that you'll be completing. And this really has to capture the severity and magnitude of your security issues that your district and schools are facing using data. This data will most likely be your vulnerability assessment that was conducted. So everything has to tie into that vulnerability assessment and what that recommendation was from when you engaged in that exercise. Significance and impact on student population. You will have to know the demographics that you serve and unique security vulnerabilities that might have been identified. Step 3 is the biggest section of the narrative elements, and that's the project planning. So firstly, the alignment to the vulnerability assessment, timeline of the project, and projected costs. This is where our account executives are happy to engage with you to find accurate and accurate projections of your costs, right size to your specific building. And the last section of the narrative elements are the stakeholder input. And this is any summaries that you can provide from stakeholders, which could be students, staff, different law enforcement personnel that you're engaging in, and you will have an opportunity to upload surveys, reports, and letters of support for the projects. You'll also have a chance to elaborate on your current collaborations that you have around security. Next slide, please. And I wanted to make a special slide for organization size and how I wanted to highlight how this program is it's targeting smaller LEA districts with fewer school sizes. So if you have a smaller school, you'll automatically get 20 points for that application score. So we can really see that the SOF is really encouraging smaller districts to submit their application. Next. And I know allowable cost is always a big consideration of how to approach this grant funding. This is the comprehensive list that's available through the Notice of Funding Opportunities. There's 5 major cost categories that's will be allowable through this grant. Life safety systems, specifically in regards to fire alarms, access control, public access control, visitor management, surveillance, mostly video surveillance and cameras, and then communications. I'm seeing a comment, so we will definitely open this up for comments after this slide because I think this is where everyone has questions on. And communications is currently a lot has to do with the public address system, so audio communications and the accessories that go along with that. And I will address questions now about allowable costs before we get too far away. I think I see one. Do you have any insights on acquiring funding to cover licensing fees? So from this brings up a great point of unallowable costs associated with this grant, and I do believe subscriptions and perhaps licensing fees are clumped into that unallowable costs. Any funding to cover, well, we most certainly can engage with you to identify funding options. We also recommend looking into your title funding to be able to cover some of this unallowable costs that are attached to the allowable costs. So any other questions regarding allowable costs, please put them in the chat and we can keep addressing them as they come. What services we provide as Bluum is these webinars. We hope to continue the webinar series in the when the year turns in January, so we can make sure everyone's on the same page and that you have extra support when you need it the most. We're also able to answer technical questions about the grant through email and one-on-one chats, through phone or video. And we provide application reviews as well. So if you send us a draft of your application, we'll make sure that it's aligned to your narrative section. And we'll check for clarity and be your partner through that application process to make it strong. We'll also be providing Bluum application guides, which includes outlines to the questions that is in the narrative section. So you'll have a clear starting point of writing those narrative sections. And of course, the word limit is quite manageable, so we really hope that this can help. All right. And as a reminder, Bluum offers services such as the Grants Advisory Services free of charge with no expectation that we will receive any benefits from the grant other than through a fully competitive bid process that's required by applicable rules and regulations. So please just remember this is courtesy service and there will be no charges associated. And that brings us to our final slide. We'd love to open it up for questions, and we included our contact as well as the Idaho School Safety and Security contact, Katie Francis, who will be able to assist you with maybe questions that are specifically related to what's allowable and unallowable. If we're not able to help. So we'd really love to keep the conversation going and support you through this process and get you to January 15th, where the grant will be due. This wraps it up for me. And I can go to the chat to see if any of our guests have any questions. So great.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Eureka. And like Eureka said, if you do have any questions, feel free to pop those in the chat, or you can contact us directly. We will be emailing you with a copy of this recording, a copy of this presentation, and some other resources, and you'll be able to reply to us as well. We really, really appreciate you joining us this afternoon, and we're really glad to support you. Thank you.